Alrighty guys, welcome back. Earlier we were talking about a little bit more about the College Football Super League, and now we're going to be discussing UFC 300 and what happened this past weekend with that.
Great.
Okay. So let's start out with Max Holloway, who beats Justin
Gaethje.
Say it again.
Gaethje. Justin Gaethje.
Gaethje. Okay.
I'm there for you.
Okay, so Max Holloway beats Justin Gaethje with a KO of the century. All it takes is one moment of brilliance to steal the entire show. With a total of 12 current or former champions fighting at the landmark of UFC 300 event in Las Vegas, it was going to take something extraordinary to stand out, but Max Holloway rose to the challenge. With only 10 seconds remaining of his lightweight contest with Justin Gaethje for the symbolic BMF title, Holloway pointed to the floor, inviting his American compatriot to stand and trade blows, with the pair swinging wildly, burning the final remnants of their energy following a grueling 5 rounds. It was Holloway who connected hardest, sending Gaethje crumbling to the canvas with 1 second remaining. The sold-out crowd at the T-Mobile Arena burst into a deafening roar while TV cameras showed wild expressions of the faces of fighters watching at the octagon side. UFC commentator Joe Rogan decided the finish as the KO of the century, while the promotion's president Dana White likened it to a scene from a movie. Holloway, who is 32, won the commemorative BMF title awarded to the UFC's baddest fighter, and the description could not be more apt considering Holloway, who was set to win the bout by decision, risked defeat in favor of entertaining the fans and chasing a knockout.
BMS stands for baddest mother effer.
Oh, okay.
I knew you didn't know what that was standing for. You're like, ooh, your reaction. Okay, first off, Justin Gaethje is that fighter that puts it all out there. He puts his entire body into the fight. I mean, he's willing to go blow for blow with anyone. And then you have Max Holloway. Both of these guys are UFC legends. And this was one. I've seen Max Holloway do this before, where there's only like 20 seconds left in the fight, and he's like, let's do this right here, center of the ring, let's go for it. Well, Justin Gaethje's one of those guys, like, they ain't said nothing but a word, let's do this. Gaethje was losing anyway. Max Holloway could have just ran and won the fight, but he pointed to the center of the ring, got to the center of the ring, and they went at it. And when the land, I don't know if you're able to pull it up, Faith, and see, I think you will be a little surprised. Man, when they started throwing haymakers, and when he caught Gaethje, I mean, Gaethje went out. I've seen Gaethje get caught before. That was the best knockout, I say, in UFC history. That may be my favorite knockout ever. Literally 1 second left in the fight. There's no time left. There's only 1 second left in the fight. And Max cold cocks him and he is gone. I look at, let's say, greatest knockouts ever. I see when Manny Pacquiao got knocked out. I thought that was the best knockout ever. The best fight ever, I always say, is that Thomas Hearns Marvin Hagler fight. And maybe the Roberto Duran Thomas Hearns knocking out Roberto Duran. Now do you see what I'm talking about? Look at the look on Faith's face. Do you understand what I'm talking about now, Faith?
Knockouts are so funny to me, because like they look like they're fine, and then all of a sudden they get one hit and then they just sleep.
Do you see why I told you to look at it, Faith?
Yeah.
the look on your face was priceless. Do you see why when you're looking at that, you're like, that could be one of the greatest knockouts
Sorry.
ever. Go ahead.
It's just the way they like fold over, and then this dude is just like laying down, face down on the ring. That's
you lose all control of your body.
It's such a humbling experience, I'm sure.
It's like he took his soul from him. Am I right?
Yeah.
Now see
Yeah.
your whole reaction to it totally changed. Once you saw what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. And the fact is, did it show him when he's pointing to the middle of the ring and he's saying, "Let's go"?
This was just a highlight. I don't know.
Yeah, but right before
he
points to the center of the ring and said, "Let's go right now." And it's like, all right, let's go. And they just start firing shots. Skill went out the window. Everything is like me versus you. I love how it made Faith light up. So,
oh my God.
And kind of like Dana White said, it kind of took the air out of it. There was two. Weili had her fight, defending her, the women's strawweight title, and then the light heavyweight title with Alex Pereira. I felt like after that fight, everything else was kind of like, okay, everyone was just buzzing and talking about that fight, that the two main and co-main event fights were kind of like, okay. And, even though Alex Pereira knocked Jamal Hill out in the first round, Weili went to decision. It was kind of like the star of the night was Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway. And it was just, it blew the doors off of the arena. UFC 300 was supposed to be the greatest card in UFC history. Everyone, UFC 100, UFC 200, and then UFC 300, they always put on their biggest event, and this is supposed to have been their biggest event ever. And I haven't really been feeling like it's the most stacked card, but maybe not the biggest names. But it delivered maybe the biggest knockout in UFC history. So that was huge. I had to cover that one. Yeah. I know we got a couple more things to talk about, so we're going to move on. But that knockout was impressive.
Yeah. Knockouts, every time I see them, I'm always so shocked at just how they just fall asleep, because that's crazy to me. Okay, so our next story is Dana White announces Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler will headline UFC 303 in June. So the biggest star in MMA history will fight in the main event of UFC 303. Conor McGregor's long-awaited, highly anticipated return to the octagon is official for UFC 303 against Michael Chandler. UFC CEO Dana White officially announced the matchup following Saturday's UFC 300 event. The matchup will take place at a welterweight, not middleweight, as the Notorious previously claimed, and serve as a headlining act of the UFC 303 card, which goes down at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas and airs on pay-per-view following prelimits of ESPN. Chandler has long been targeted as the return opponent for McGregor after the two fighters coached opposing teams on The Ultimate Fighter in 2023. McGregor has not been in action since breaking his leg in 2021 in a trilogy bout against Dustin Poirier at the UFC 264. It will be nearly 3 years since he's seen action. The Irishman recently expressed frustration at the UFC about his return, stating his patience is wearing thin after he re-entered the drug testing pool. McGregor, 35, subsequently announced he would be returning to fight Chandler during the International Fight Week on June 29th, and it would be contested in the middleweight division. That ultimately proved false, but now McGregor will return to the octagon a few months sooner than expected. Looking to derail what McGregor's team has dubbed as the greatest return in sports history will be the former three-time Bellator champion Chandler, who sees his long wait for the matchup finally paying off. Chandler, who's 37, hasn't competed since November of 2022, where he suffered a Fight of the Year contender loss to Poirier at UFC 281.
Okay. Now, the reason why I put this in the UFC 300 category is because it was announced during UFC 300. Mm-hmm. This is going to be a big fight. This is going to maybe the biggest fight in UFC history. Mm-hmm. And you look around and you're like, it really is. A guy that hasn't fought in 3 years versus a guy that hasn't fought in 2 years. When one's 22 and one back in 2022 and one's before that. I look around and I look at this and I'm excited about this fight. I'm a little surprised that it's going to be at welterweight. It says it's going to be at welterweight. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. McGregor wanted it at the middleweight division. Both of those guys haven't really fought at that weight. But since McGregor breaking his leg, he has gained a lot of muscle, a lot. And that's concerning because cutting weight is tough, incredibly tough. And so it's easier for Chandler, who's a smaller guy, to gain weight than, gaining weight. You get to eat, get fat, drink as much water. There's no weight cut. There's nothing. It's just train, eat cheeseburgers, and get bigger. Mm-hmm. Where Conor McGregor, who's always been a small man, has gotten to be a much larger, muscular man, is going to have to tear his body down and weaken his body to get down to the welterweight division, which I think is going to be incredibly hard for him the last few years to be walking around at the size that he is. McGregor's not a small guy anymore. Mm-hmm. With that being said, you're looking at a big fight that's gonna I think gonna break some records. Right now, I feel like a fighter coming off of a leg kick where you break your leg, I mean, it snaps in half. This is not one of those, like I just told you with the knockout with the Gaethje one, I said, look it up. This is not one of those. This is not one you want to look up because it's brutal and it's vicious. And I want you to make sure you understand this. I watched Anderson Silva never be the same again after he broke his leg. I can't even think of the guy's name from New York that he broke his leg with, but he broke his leg. And never was the same. Fighters are not the same when you snap both of those bones in half. When they wrap around, your leg wraps around another man's leg, they're never the same again. I've yet to see a fighter. Chris Weidman is the other one that broke his leg that way. I've never seen a fighter ever come back from this. Even Alex Smith, in football, when he broke his leg that way, he had a comeback, but he wasn't Alex Smith anymore. You cannot have that kind of trauma. Granted, it's been a long wait to come back, and I'm happy to see him come back. I worry that Conor has been inactive even before breaking his leg. He's been way too inactive, hasn't won in a long time. I'm taking Chandler to win this one, and that's my prediction. Mm-hmm. So we'll move on. We have one more quick story here.
Okay, so Holly Holm lost all focus in the loss to Kayla Harrison at the UFC 300, and Dana White wants her to retire. Holly Holm, who might have been at a crossroad where her future is concerned, the former bantamweight, I think bantamweight,
yes,
Champion suffered a lopsided loss to two-time Olympic judo gold medalist Kayla Harris at UFC 300 after she was taken down and choked out in the second round. The loss dropped Holm to 1-2 with no contest in her past 4 fights, with both losses coming via submission. Following the disappointing loss, Holm took to social media to issue a statement about her performance. Well, none of that went how I envisioned over the last 10 weeks of training camp, Holm said. I have no excuses. I had all the best coaching, the best teammates, the best sparring, all the help I could ever dream of asking for. I went out there and lost all focus on the game plan. I did nothing that we trained for in this fight. All respect to Kayla, she was the better fighter tonight. Earlier in the opening round, Holm invited a grappling exchange with Harrison, which seemed like a bad idea considering the former PFL champion almost certainly wanted to fight on the ground. Holm actually scored an early reversal, but then found herself stuck under Harrison, eating elbows and punches for nearly 5 consecutive minutes. The situation only went from bad to worse in the second round when Harrison once again took Holm to the canvas, advanced her to back before latching on the fight-ending rear naked choke. At 42, Holm admitted in her statement that she needs time to process the loss before deciding what's next for her career.
Okay. Holly Holm, former UFC bantamweight champion, famous for knocking out Ronda Rousey to win the title. That's the one she's really, that's what she's really famous for. Absolutely love Holly. I think Holly is one of the great ambassadors to the game. I was kind of excited because she had brought in Chris Cyborg to train with for this event, trying to train and grapple with a much stronger person. And Cyborg's if you know MMA, Cyborg's a very big, strong woman. But I understand when she says she lost focus, because when you watch that fight, it's kind of like, what is Holly thinking? This was no ordinary, hey, she beat, PFL starlet Kayla Harris. No, this is the greatest judo competitor in Olympic history. 2-time gold medal winning Kayla Harris, greatest judo fighter in history. And what does she want to do? She want to grapple with the greatest judo fighter in sports history. That was a bad mix. I'm going to take what you're absolutely strongest with, and I'm going to do that. And that's kind of the way it felt like. Like, it was more like, I felt like Holly wanted to kind of impose her will on Kayla and show her that she could compete with her, because that whole takedown and then get a reverse, it just, any game plan, any strategy she had went out the window. Holly should have came in using a lot of footwork, using her. Kayla Harris is the world's greatest judo fighter. Holly Holmes is a boxing champion, a kickboxer, and an MMA fighter. So she should have used her range. She was a taller, longer, linkier fighter. She should have used her footwork, her legs to move around the ring, make it a long, drawn-out fight, and point her to the point to victory. She didn't do that. And when you look at it, significant strikes landed. You start looking, you think of, when you say significant strikes, Faith, this is, you got solidly hit in the face. You know what I mean? This wasn't a grazing blow. In 2 rounds, Holly landed 2 significant strikes. That was it. Kayla Harris threw 71 and landed 51. That means elbows, punches, everything. Strikes, Kayla Harris, total strikes. Holly threw 7. Kayla landed 7. Kayla Holmes threw 91 strikes, landed 68 flush. Significant are power, like I said, 51 of them were power shots. You can't take a beating like that and think you're going to last long. The whole point of the reason why I wanted to bring this up is Holly has had a great career. Uh, I hate saying this, but in the world of MMA, you can get hurt out there. And that the point I'm getting at is Kayla landed a lot of very big shots on her. Her last few fights that she's lost, people have landed some very big shots on her. Holly Holmes is a Hall of Famer, and I would love to see her give it up. I hope when she steps back and she looks at this and she looks at her last few fights, that this may be her last fight, because she's had a Hall of Fame career. She's fought for titles. She has the biggest upset in women's mixed martial arts history. One of the biggest upsets in sports history is her knocking out Ronda Rousey. It is that time that sometimes you got to know when to quit. This isn't a Tiger Woods situation where you can be like, oh, I'll go to the senior circuit and I'll putt a few balls with the 60-year-old guys. No, you get huge shots landed on you. People kick you in the head. Kayla, Kayla threw a really nice kick that landed. Elbows, punches, hard punches where she's on the mat, Kayla's firing down shots on her, laying in the elbows. You can't, as an older fighter, as an older woman, you don't want to be taking those shots long term. It's that time. I would love to see Holly retire.
Yeah.
That's my last take on that one.
Well, those were actually the words of Dana White as well. He said he would love to see Holly retire after the fight, but she did not respond to White's suggestion after that. Wow. So we'll see. I guess.
Also, we should have used this time to announce your turning pro as an MMA fighter, right?
Who?
You.
Who? No. No. I wouldn't last a second in that
ring. No faith turning pro as an MMA fighter anytime soon. This does set up the talk of an Amanda Nunes Caitlin fight. I would love to see a Kayla Harris fight. I would love to see that one. Most people are gonna say Amanda Nunes, the greatest fighter ever. They're taking Amanda Nunes. I've watched every one of Kayla Harris's fights since she's turned pro. I would take Kayla. I would definitely take Kayla. Kayla's the bigger, stronger fighter. And Amanda's been out of the game for a while. The thing with Amanda though is Amanda is like Tyson. She hits so hard. And so that would be the fight that's the fight to book right there.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Alrighty, guys. Well, with that, we are going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to dive into our dating horror stories for the week. So make sure you guys stick around, and we'll be back in a minute.